Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Asana Hanu, and I am the Gilbert Chapel Distinguished Poet for the Central Region, and this is Central Region Sessions. What we're gathered here to do tonight is to hear some poetry. And I have the honor of being able to introduce the emerging poets for the 2020-21 Emerging Poets Mentor Series for North Carolina Poetry Society. Now, the Gilbert Chapel Mentor Series is an opportunity for emerging poets to be connected with established poets in 3 regions. We're in the Central Region. Poets can apply to be a part of the series. The program is open to middle school students, high school students, college students, and adults. Matter of fact, the 21-22 series will be open for applications starting in September. You can actually start applying on September 1st, and applications will be open until November 15th. This is a great, great way for poets across the community to be connected, to hear from each other, to learn from each other. And one of the wonderful things about it is the opportunity to be able to share work together, which is what we're going to do tonight. So you're going to hear from some really, really fantastic poets I've just had so much fun working with them. And then we're going to close off this evening with a very special guest and a really talented, award-winning poet who is going to come and share with you tonight. So sit back, relax. There's a couple of things that we do whenever we gather people to hear poetry. Just a couple of things that we like for everyone to do. We like for everyone to clear their hearts and their minds, take some deep breaths, get themselves ready to be able to focus on the words. If you need to go to the restroom, maybe you might want to go ahead and run there really quick. Come on back. But we'll hope you're in a comfortable place, that you're fed, you're not hungry. Maybe you got some snacks, something to drink. Wine always works well. And you're prepared and ready to listen. So, without further ado, what I want to do is I want to make sure everyone is ready so that when these poems start, you know exactly what's really going to go. All right? So here's the first thing I want you to do. I want you to imagine that we're all in a beautiful cafe. You've ordered a drink from just over to the right. You're sitting in the most comfortable seat. There's beautiful paintings on the wall. It's a wonderful evening. Not too hot, not too cold. Everyone's feeling great, ready to let go of the day. As soon as they walk in the door, you're looking forward on a small raised stage. It's a podium, and you're waiting with bated breath for the first poet to take the stage. That's what I want you to imagine as you sit back and prepare yourself for this series. I'm so grateful to the North Carolina Poetry Society for making this happen. And if you know, like I know, creative writing, poetry, and expression is so critical and so necessary. Poetry is a beautiful art form that provides a voice to so many. And your support, wherever poetry is available, makes it possible for us to continue to write, share, and reach and touch others. So let's bring up your first poet. Our first poet is going to be Isabel Yates.
Hello, my name is I'm Isabel, and I am a rising junior at St. Mary's High School in Raleigh, and I've been writing poetry for a very long time. Kind of always been something that I have done, and I have a lot of fun with it. I typically write from kind of things I imagine, or if I see something doing something, or if I see someone doing something like on the street or just in a random place, I will turn it into a poem. So it's a lot of imagination that I use, and just taking little scenes from everyday life and making them special. So I have, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I have 3 poems that I will be sharing. The first is just kind of a little like sketch, I guess, of everyday life. And that is inspired by my love of drinking tea. Very first thing in the morning, I wake up and I have a cup of tea, and that is a necessity. So I wrote a poem about it. And then my second poem is just kind of a general reflection on poetry, and it's a style I don't use very often. So that one's fun. And then the very last one I'm sharing is about Raleigh, which is where I live. And where I've spent the last, 10 years of my life. So I hope you all will enjoy. The first one is called Morning. It is early still. The stray wisps of dawn curling around the window curtains, settling with the dust on the hardwood floors, cool against his bare feet. He slips into the hallway, the crackle of the sound machine trailing from his daughter's cracked door. When voices did not clutter the space between the walls, he could hear these things. The soft chatter of birds in the trees outside, the rhythmic hum of the air conditioning out and in like breath, the sounds of the kitchen, water running softly from the tap, a small thud, the kettle lifted then set back, the clink of a mug on granite, and the barely audible patter of sugar falling across a tea bag. There's waiting, the anticipation of the kettle's slow rise, churning, heating, until the water's roar alerts him even before the quick beat that ends the cycle. The bubble of water cascading through the tea bag. He watched the steam curl up around the cabinets, undulating wearily in the soft light, as the water slowly absorbed a deep crimson umber. 5 minutes deep, the faint tick of his watch an easy reminder. Milk twisting awkwardly in the dark liquid, until the spoon's clatter brought gratifying homogeny. Ready, now. The porcelain was warm against his lips, the heat trickling throughout his body, warming, waking, lingering, even after the last sip. Yeah. My second poem is called What I've Learned. I've learned that poetry doesn't grow on a forbidden tree or reside deep in some tumultuous sea. It is not a scintilla of lost words, traces in Manila, scraps of paper gone before the sentences seek deeper than frivolous lore. Poetry cannot be found, is not a seashell glistening atop a sandy mound. It cannot be picked, cannot be plucked, is not a golden star to be earned. For a poet, I have learned, is not in the business of finding luck. Poetry is verse. Poetry is song. Poetry is words dancing and gliding along. It is not a trophy. It is not a waste, but an echo of a world, a pen in no need of haste. It is a labyrinth. It is a maze. It is a straight path leading up past the haze. It cannot be stumbled upon like a stone, but is crafted and hammered until it's shown. There's a poem in the water, a poem in the breeze, a poem in the waves of the tumultuous seas. But it is a poem to be written, to be shared, to be given. It cannot be found, cannot be hidden. A poet is not an entomologist. We cannot capture a poem with the flick of a wrist, but we have our own butterflies on the walls, except ours can escape and fly through the halls. For it is only on the wings of a poem, I have learned, that the cluttered mind's great pages can be turned. Thank you. My last poem is called An Ode to My Hometown. I knew you once, your jagged skyline cut from the trees that lined my backyard, and the shape of the church's steeple rising above the grassy play area. I knew your dust, the way the red southern clay dries up, cracking like the creases in an old man's skin, like memories. The pollen that snows down in spring, like white Christmas except yellow, Springtime for you is always coated in a smothering of yellow. I knew your streets from the car windows, forehead leaning against the glass. I watched you passing by. Traffic cones and little orange barriers, tractors and cranes cracking open your hard shell, ever pushing outward, keeping you clothed in that fine red Carolina clay. I could not map your streets, could not track my way home in a rainstorm, but I knew your cracked pavement, the ruts in the hardened tar that collected bits of rainwater, puddles of oil that made little rainbows in the light, the smell of water evaporating off sidewalks when the rain lifted and you turned relieved to face the sun again. I have seen you, glittering proudly in the ripples in the lake, the greenway path that meanders down past the art museum, blooming flowers in late spring when you don your last gown before the cold comes. I knew how you bent under the weight of winter. Shudder and creak, your trees not so evergreen under the heavy gray sky. The wind that sweeps under highway overpasses ruffles the naked branches of the sweeping oaks. But I have seen you beam in the light of the first snow. Icicles gathering on the tips of leaves, bamboo bending into a tunnel over the power lines that we've dragged our sleds under, etching paths through your powdered streets. You could never carry its chill for long. Shaking off the snow like a wet dog, you welcomed the twinkle of soft pink light on white that meant the sun was returning. You were not the city of my dreams, the sprawling, wild-covered castle of a thing in England or Neverland or Narnia, the city I have always and never known. But I knew you, and I was yours. I will always be yours. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Isabel. All right, that's our first emerging poet from the Gilbert Chapel Milton series. Told you, man, there's some wonderful, wonderful writing that you're going to hear. And stay tuned, because before we're all said and done, we have a very special guest. Our next poet is Iris Newland.
Hello, everyone. It's me. It's Iris Newland. Here I am. I'm here to share poetry with you and a bit about myself. I've been writing poetry since I was, I want to say like 6 or 7, but I didn't really know how to write. I was just really enamored with Dr. Seuss and the style of rhyming poems, and I'd like make up stuff to myself while I was on like long car rides. And since then I've sort of branched out. It's gotten harder for me to get excited about rhyming poems as I've gotten older. I don't really know what's up with that. They're harder to write. Anyway, I take a lot of inspiration from both things that happen to me personally, things I see and I notice in the world around me, and also works of fiction that I consume. I like combining really fantastical imagery of dragons and planets exploding and, hey, get down from there. No, get down from there. Sorry, there is kittens, and they are jumping up on shelves that they are not supposed to be up on, and they might interrupt this broadcast. I'll ask you to be patient with them. Anyway, I really like combining the exciting things that my imagination comes up with mundane things, and I use that to like discover things about myself I think are important, and things about the world around me. The 3 poems I would like to share are 2 that I wrote fairly recently, and 1 that I wrote sometime at the very start of quarantine, I think. I was gonna share 3 I wrote recently, but then I didn't like the title of one of them, so I decided not to do that. Anyway, this first one is called Crow Song, and I wrote it because there was this crow outside of my window who would not stop yelling, and then there was more of them, and I got really fascinated by all of them. And I'd looked up something about crows and owls and the way that they'll fight each other and can't be kept next to each other in aviaries, and that made me excited, and so I wrote about it. So here we go. Come, sisters, we will take wing from the great tree and spend our days fighting owls. Creatures of the woods are silent, death is in their bottle-cap faces, their bodies are long like cats, and they will kill us while we stand. It was just last week that we made the discovery of another one, brown, the size of a house. As the sky's eye falls shut and our heads dip under our wings, we know he comes, head first, into the draining light from the wood on the hill. One night, I woke to its laughter like a door off its hinges. I remember freezing in a dream as one unspooled around the trunk of a tree to meet me with inquisitive eyes. Broken by the cliff's edge of adrenaline, I threw my head up to the empty night sky and met a dozen wings for us and I, my roof and embrace. And I saw them move like wind in the grass. No hurt, no hurt, no hurt. Death omen on my left, beating hard on my right. We crossed the boneyard wingtip to wingtip. You who gather and shout with me, there's none other I would rather lay down my life for, fighting owls. That's that one. I also should mention I was inspired by an episode of Avatar: The Last Airbender, where they encounter an owl librarian spirit whose neck extends, and it's creepy as all heck. Owls are really scary to look at. They're so cool, but they're really frightening. That's what I think. All right, this next one I'm tentatively calling The Dragon, and I wrote it about a play company that I used to act in when I was a very young child, and how it was kind of falling apart, and all of the complicated feelings I have about it. So here we go. Friday nights were for dress rehearsals, and the director would meet us with Costco pizza. We'd suck down the marbled slices and grow rich with minerals and gems. I wonder if there are dragons that take sustenance from their own hoards. I can imagine one swallowing and smacking its lips. A wealth of coins and rubies, and imagination vanishing. We'd huddle in the surface tension of a time bubble, ready for the evening to lose its shape under the firelights. The director would start yelling sometime around 7, while we were killing time fussing in the dark. Her irateness and her laughter would come crackling down from the lighting booth, and I'd pretend to freeze the air around me until she stopped. She always did, eventually. She's getting old anyway, for all her vigor. Hiding among the posters and shoes in the dressing room bathroom, I picture Smaug in small round glasses, taking inventory. Now, where did that darned ring go? My slowly melting skin can't be too concerned, but my heart knows the truth. There's only so many plastic gems and sequined cloaks. We can only keep the fire going for so much longer. Well, that's that. There is... Would you stop that? I'm trying to read poetry. That's very loud. Stop it. Stop it. No. I think we'll just have to deal with the background noise of the cats. This third one I wrote at the start of quarantine, and I wrote it when I was feeling very uninspired and sad. And I ended up trying to write it. I told myself that I wouldn't write it about how uninspired and heavy and sad I felt, but it ended up being about that in a way that surprised me, which was surprising because I had originally started off trying to write it about my dad and how he's lively and he always is excited to keep doing all the things you need to do in order to stay alive, even when things are very hard. So anyway, those two things combined in a way that I did not expect. And it's called What Strength and Buoyancy. My dad taught me how to run faster by just taking bigger steps and stretching out my legs. I thought it must have been easier for him because he was a boy when he learned. Every boy I'd met so far was faster than me. I thought it was easier for him because he was tall. I thought it was easier because he was light and he moved like the wind, and he never stopped going until he finished what he'd begun. When I was born, my parents brought my star chart to the witches who frequented the same woods as my father's sisters, and they told me things I don't remember. Except for how I had no water, only one earth, and the rest of me was all fire and air. And maybe this was why I never wanted to leave pools, rivers, throwing myself against the heaviness of lapping surfaces, eddies, and currents. There were only 2 summers I could successfully jump off the high dive, and each one I dreamed of the heaviness of water against my limbs, and how I could hang from the surface, simultaneously released and embraced by the roll and drift. It doesn't always feel like that. I'm heavy. I stand up like a falling tree. I walk the eggshell snow of the Alps. I tread the tips of avalanches. But he never tired of piling me on top of his wheelbarrow of wood, of picking me up to stack it all and setting me back down again. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Iris. Okay. This is going wonderful. I hope you are enjoying the poems that you are hearing, but we are not yet done. We've got more for you and a special guest. Hold on. But next up, we have Lisa Lunding. So hold on tight as we welcome Lisa.
Hi, I'm Lisa Lundeen. I live in Greensboro and really identify with being from the Piedmont, and you'll hear nature influences in much of my work. You'll also perhaps hear echoes of my work as a board-certified chaplain. I work in oncology and support people in many of their most liminal life experiences. The 3 poems that I've brought for you this evening are all fairly short. They come from my morning writing practice. I write a poem every day before I start anything else. And these are all samples from this month in Lisa's world. The first is called With Berry-Stained Mouth. What is death? Asks the child with berry-stained mouth. Hands muddy and full of grass, at once youthful and old beyond ancient. What is this moment, I ask in return, but the richness of life, the edge of death, and the heels that outrun it? Burgeoning possibility, the energy present and potential, chemical, positional, aspirational. Part of the cycle that starts again with mystery and mud and berries on the edge of tall grass. Life begins in your mouth when you speak it, taste it, inhale and exhale it. Life flourishes in the asking, even when the berries' answers are quiet on your tongue. The next is called Nesting in the Third Eye. Writing is a doorway to truth seldom spoken aloud, but which rests quietly and truly in a gently feathered nest. Twigs, vines, grasses, even trash woven together to hold the egg, the gem, that sacred potential cradled amongst layers. A baby bird, prickly and pink, awaits in the third eye, ready to grow into its plumage, its gangly wings, and ultimately to fly. This last one is called Magic Rising, and when I read it to my husband tonight, I said, I think I should dedicate it to all the witches who were burned. Magic Rising. The black birds arise cacophonous from the field where I stand naked, the glass of my ego thin, transparent, less a barrier than the stream at wood's edge. I discover myself all over again, no plumage for cover, the ground littered with feathers, glossy offerings. I don't gather them up to bind to my arms, because I know that my heart is the winged creature, fluttering in its own rhythm, and I lift off from the grass, seeds wavering, air hushed, men offended but meaningless in the face of my magic. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lisa. Wow. Wow. Man, I love it. I love poetry. I love words. I love expression. I love writers. Thank all of you writers out there. Thank you so very much. All right. So before we even begin to get into our special guest, what I wanted to do was take it off a moment to share some pieces with you myself. It is an honor to be able to share this space, a moment with these writers. And so I'm going to share some pieces as well. This first piece, in moments like this, I like to share pieces that talk about this world that we navigate as writers, and in particular in this moment, about how opportunities like this, programs like this, give us a chance to be writers outside of gated communities, outside of expectation, and that I value so much. So this one is called Bookshelves and God Complexes. It is a short poem that is about some of these spaces that have been turned to something else other than a welcoming space for creativity. They have turned bookshelves into cults of personality, secret handshakes, pledged allegiance, ritualistic compromise, and a gate-kept password. Claim that real estate gated community membership only, set the standard sacrifice necessary to be seen as accepted. They have turned bookshelves into bastion of bourgeois disillusionment, named its overseers a literary boule, named its accolades rite of passage, not acknowledgement of the breath and sweat put into crafting a necessary mattering. They cannot do the same with the community's hands. They cannot do the same with the community's ears, not their hearts, not their souls. There are no confines to the possible of that blessed assurance. They demand a humbling, resembling a 40-year wait, a wilderness they say will teach you to appreciate the promised land. Call your pen to page, staff to a rock if the water that flows is credited to anything other than the power they wield. Then your atonement is a snide dismissal. But they cannot rewrite the people's faith in your words. They cannot deny the impact. They cannot dismiss the many you feed with the feast prepared with no more than pen and paper. Cannot call it no less than a miracle. For to witness it is to believe, is to know a great thing. So write we will, what a good and pleasing will it is. This next poem is called Black Tidal Waves on the Front Line. And it's was written in consideration of the uprisings that we saw, and the movements that were built, the resistance that we saw, and looking on the front lines and seeing so many women, so many Black women, so many queer Black women, such a power and resilience. So Black Tidal Waves on the Front Line. The other thing about this poem is that old adage that you're all right until someone cries. When you got someone mad, there's a moment where you can turn things around until the tears fall. And at that point in time, when you get someone mad and the tears roll down the cheek, there's no turning back at that point. Don't they say that things change when tears fall? Don't they say ain't no reconciliation enough salve for the wound when that cheek wets? There must be answers. There must be action. There must be reason given for mercy. It better be strong as thunder, lightning, and the look on pastor's face. This here mad be centuries long. It is deep and bellows like ghosts singing field hollers. You know you owe when these tears fall. You know you wrong when these tears fall. You know how long we've been resilient, been in spite of, been looking beyond the darkness. This clenched fist and red cheek, this clenched jaw and blood boiling, this here walking nail is a sounding, an unescapable song. The notes aren't a sorrowful sheep music. No, they are a harrowing reminder that the chickens have come to let the roosters know freedom is letting go of a belief that the dinner table is necessary for our survival, that it be our duty. These tears are a warning shot. They are a familiar necessary to the sky and a hell no to the ground waiting for our bones. When these tears fall, there will be no other option than to prepare for all that comes after and know you deserve it. And then the last piece is actually called Next Door Elegy. And this piece is important because it's actually based on a true story. And I was in New York and was staying with a friend of mine. And unfortunately, a neighbor, an older neighbor, passed. And because I was visiting, I was sleeping in the living room and heard everything through the wall. I heard the panic. He had come home he had come home from a walk, which I found out later was something he did regularly. The son came home and something happened. Then you hear the panic. You hear the EMTs arrive. You hear all of this. And at some point in time, we both had to leave. We were actually on our way to sound check for a show. And he's frantic and wondering, but at that moment, he really couldn't check in on the family. We couldn't. But when we returned back to the building, to flowers and candles outside of the building, because the neighborhood, he was so beloved in the neighborhood. Once they found out, then everyone rushes over. We make our way back upstairs. My friend sees the son. They talk, and we find out what actually happened. And he offers whatever comfort you can offer someone in a moment of that kind of loss. And when we got back in, I wrote this poem. A man died in the apartment next door. Walls a screeching anguish, floor a gasping choke. The bellow from his son's larynx, a guttural blues bass lick. It shook the building so hard I thought I heard God apologize. Winter moved in next door, unpacked a teary blizzard and froze the last breaths of a family's morning horizon. The frost made the walls look like tombstones. I lowered my head in prayer as I listened to a son scream for more sunshine. He repeated his father's name over and over again as if he was searching the crevices of death's cloak for a glimmer of light to rescue from purgatory. The amber alert and the siren's wail made the neighborhood search for the old man in the recesses of their fonder memories. The collective gathering of hand to hand and pleading with heaven blew ripples across the East River and back. I hoped their window was open. I hoped the old man shivered. The cavalcade of footsteps drummed ritualistic along the steps, police and EMTs armed with ice picks and hope staccato into the apartment. I listened to the orchestra closely, one trying to conduct a son's calm, two more playing a concerto along the father's chest. The sound wasn't right, the notes too flat, a defibrillator to tune. Clear, clear. They played again and again. I wish I could read sheet music, but I could only play along by ear. When they carried the man away, I wish the stretcher never be ice tray. Wish the daughter had gotten there earlier, 10 minutes before the revival arrived. When her brother said the father had just returned, instead she arrived in a panic to choir disbelief in family unison, hymnal along her brother's tear-soaked shoulder. I wished for a sermon of victory to follow, not a eulogy. Man died in the apartment next door. Candles outside the building when I returned told the tale. Each step upstairs felt heavy, felt awkward. Showing up at a manger with an I'm sorry didn't feel biblical enough, not wise enough. But it was all I had to offer. The son of a God-fearing man, I couldn't save him from the Judas of his senses, couldn't rescue him from the mourning he will carry like cross when he first steps into the living room, seeking a soul that is no longer. When his heart feels bolder and he has to push that rigid aside to resurrect a life after. I know no other thing to do. Other than to add them to the list of things I lay at God's feet each night, I ask for grace and mercy to end this poem with an amen. So that's Next Door Elegy. All right. So we do have a very, very, very special guest. And so what I'm going to do is, as we get ready for our guest to join us, is to tell you a little bit about who will be closing out our program today. This is Central Region Sessions, and my name is Asana Hanu, and this is the Gilbert Chapel Distinguished Poetry Series, the Gilbert Chapel Mentor Series, where emerging poets are connected with established poets from across North Carolina. The program is divided into 3 regions, and we are in the Central Region. And this is all coordinated and facilitated by the North Carolina Poetry Society. So we're excited about this. You can find out more about the program, if you would like, by visiting the North Carolina Poetry Society website. And our special guest is a 3-time Emmy-winning poet. So excited about this. He is a multinational Poetry Slam champion, an author, a curator. He is one of the coordinators and the host of Slam Charlotte, which happens in conjunction with Blumenthal Performing Arts Center in Charlotte, North Carolina. He has, toured all over. He has been able to provide and write poetry for the ACC, for NASCAR, for the Charlotte Hornets, for the Carolina Panthers. Just an amazing, amazing mentor, an amazing teaching artist, and an amazing performer as well as writer. And I'm so glad that he was able to join us this evening. So his name is Blues, and he will be joining us in just a moment. So for everyone watching, thank you so much for supporting poetry, for being here with us. As we await Blues and get him here, what I want to do for a moment is I'm going to bring all of our writers, all of our emerging poets back for 1 second. Hello, hello, hello. We are missing one emerging poet because there are 4 poets, and we're missing Colin, who is actually teaching right now. But I did have the chance to work with 4 poets. And so if you stay tuned, the next reading we'll hopefully have all 4 poets together. But what I wanted to do is to take a moment for each one of you and just ask, who are some of your favorite writers? Not just poets, but who are some of the writers that have influenced you and inspired you throughout your life? So anyone can start, but give us a short list of the writers that have inspired you.
I can start.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Hard question. I read a lot of books, so there are a lot of authors. But probably a couple of my favorites, at least recently, is Ann Patchett. I've read almost all of her books, and she's just such an incredible writer. And I mean, Jane Austen is on the list, of course. Marilyn Robinson is another one who's amazing. But I also really like the old poets like Longfellow, and gosh, there's another one, but I'm forgetting the name. Emily Dickinson. I have a little volume, and it's like a 5-volume series of poetry from like early verse to the late 1900s, and it just covers everything. And I love it. So everything.
Great, thank you. Iris?
Hey there. I can talk about people who inspire me. In terms of fiction writers, I really like Neil Gaiman. he writes a lot of things that are like nice. They're just on the edge of spooky and dreamlike, and he writes a lot about like imagination and fear, and I think that's neat. I've been reading a lot of Terry Pratchett lately, and he's very funny, and then he gets surprisingly deep, and you go, whoa, I thought this was a funny book. Poets I'm trying to think of. Um, hmm. Poets. William Butler Yeats, I have a book of his poetry, and for a while, I was really inspired by him. And there is one poet, recently I have been reading a lot of poems by him, and I am blanking on his name, but he writes ghazals. He wrote one, I think it might just be called Tonight, and it's one of my favorite poems ever. I wish I could tell you more information about it, but it's just not in my brain right now.
It's okay. It's okay. That happens.
Poetry's incredible. Oh yeah, and I recently got Terrence Hayes' book, American Sonnet for My Past and Future Assassin, and that's incredible.
Yes. And Lisa.
I love the Transcendentalists. I love nature writing. My all-time favorite, of course, is Mary Oliver. I think I came of age reading Annie Dillard's Pilgrim at Tinker Creek, and I have such a passion for slow attention to detail. I also do as much reading as I can squeak in German, and love Rainer Maria Rilke's Letters to a Young Poet. Although I diverge from J.K. Rowling in her being a TERF, I'm rereading the Harry Potter series in German because that's a way to train my brain in the midst of some levity and creativity, and that's like a sport for me.
Wonderful, wonderful. And I saw ours, Mary Oliver. We won't leave that out. Yes. So thank y'all so much. Our special guest is here, so we're going to bring him on. Thank you so much. And so let's get him in here. All right. Hello, Blues. What's going on, good sir?
What's up, good sir? How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. And so we're glad that you're here. I was just speaking to our emerging poets from the Gilbert Chapel Mentor Series, Lisa, Iris, and Isabel, and we're all excited. I already ran your bio down and let the people know who you are, so I hope you're feeling good. And this time, I was nice. I did not do any of the normal shenanigans that normally happen. We're in front of company, so I just told them the truth about you.
I heard the whole thing, and I was listening intently, like, okay, let me see where he's going with this, because I know this guy. I know this guy.
Any other time, it could go left really quick. So what I want to do right now is just turn the floor over to you, let you share your poems, and then I'll return and check in with you a little bit.
Sweet. How many do you? Three?
Yeah.
Oh, good, because I had 17 pulled up. All right, so let me start with, well, first of all, thank y'all for having me. And it is so amazing to be here with Dasana Hanu, who is, if you read his resume, you'd be like, I'm not doing enough with my life and for my community. So it's an honor to be here with him and with y'all to be able to share some of these poems. And the thing I like about this space is I get to do new stuff. So yeah, so I'm going to do this new one, and let's see how it goes. All right. The poem is called Charlie Brown. When profiled, a mass shooter is sometimes described as a white, isolated, and resentful male, low self-esteem, usually coerced racist thoughts. Charlie, I wonder if Franklin would have been your first target, the token quota reached with one bullet. Would Lucy represent all the women who disrespected your manhood? Would Peppermint Patty or the little red-haired girl be a symbol of women you could not attain? But I'd like to think that I understand why you snapped. Why they told you bon voyage, Charlie Brown, and don't come back. What kind of kids say that? Wish you to never return. It's often to Neverland. Kids be cruel. Sociopaths in social settings just waiting to destroy a self-esteem, raise it to ashes, so much that the phoenix rises from the ashes, rises its gun in the classroom. Oh, Charlie, if we only heard the Pearl Jam Jeremy melody making a mess of your mind, how overwhelmingly inaudible these adults sound. You tell them, these kids are getting reckless with their behavior. They answer as articulate as a jazz trumpet underwater. You gotta figure this out for yourself, Chuck. You gotta stick up for yourself, Chuck. You gotta let them know who you are, Chuck. No more snatching footballs held by false hope. No more dangling ornaments hanging from a dying Christmas tree. No more. Charlie, I'd like to think I understand why. I'd like to think I I'd like to bang. So yeah, that was it's a new one. So I was working on some things. Appreciate y'all in the chat. Appreciate it. Oh yeah. So this next one is for my daughter. And it's for my daughter. It's for myself, right? It's called therapy, and I don't have a whole lot of time to talk about it. Maybe we'll talk about it after. Let me do the poem, and then we'll talk. My daughter goes to therapy. It helps to quiet some of the noise of being a teenager. Helps to bury the pain of loss of a best friend at 14. Helps to tame some of the anxiety of a mother's expectations. I sit in the false comfort of a lullaby lobby. It's a limbo with a leather couch, a carousel of coffees for a Keurig, matching mugs, and Wi-Fi with enough bandwidth to process all of your worries, because this place makes you question everything. John Mayer is playing from the corner of the room, like ironic thoughts set to soft guitar. Father, speak good to your daughters. Now you question, am I enough of a John Mayer song for her? Do Black girls need therapy? How many Black women wish they had therapy when they were Black girls? Wish their fathers would have considered therapy. Just wish their fathers would have considered being a father. As a father, I remember all of my dark places. Then I wonder if I left a map with all of my suicide thoughts marked, buried in my baby sadness, something she found after the tears washed away the dirt that covered it, that pointed out the places to go and hurt yourself, and no one knows where to find you if she finds it. This map. I hope this therapist helps her avoid the marked spots, the dark areas. I hope they don't ask me for help trying to navigate it, ask me for answers. I don't have enough soft guitar and easy calm to give her a response in song. I'm just more complicated and confused. Questions sitting in a limbo lobby, not drinking the coffee, not getting comfortable on the couch, trying to block out the John Mayer melody, just wondering if I even made the right decision to bring her here. Television has taught me to be father to your daughter means making hard decisions, tough choices about how they will grow up, but none of those decisions or choices included. James Evans never took Thelma to therapy. Uncle Phil never took Hillary or Ashley to therapy. Cliff Huxtable or Carl Winslow's never took their daughters to therapy. Black fathers don't take care of their daughters in this way. Because admitting that your child needs a therapist is a blow to your ego and feels like an indictment of your parenting, like you're not doing a good job. So instead, we often hypertension, ghost story, father fable, and useless sage advice them with our unnecessary masculinity. Tell them all the allegories about the strength of their black skin, their natural hair, and the rivers their ancestors waded in to get them to be strong, to get them to overlook the need for mental health. Tell them that your bloodline in a fix-it-all Jesus will be enough to make you unsad. Because Black fatherhood says, don't let them into your mind. Don't let them into your body. Robitussin and the Bible are always the perfect home remedy. The session is only an hour, but I need it to last a lifetime. I needed to lift her up from a rock bottom, to raise her in the morning when the depression is so heavy that not even her grandmother's black girl magic stained in her DNA is enough to drag her out of bed. I need her to know it's okay to not be okay. The music has turned into a blend of annoying and truth. She walks out of the session, a smile etched into her face, and I want to trust that that's a breakthrough. But fathers will always carry worry and question, because I think that's what good fathers do. So I question. I wonder if she found the map. I wonder, will I be enough John Mayer's song for this black girl? Thank you. Okay, appreciate that, y'all. So I'm gonna do this last one. And it's short, right? And I like when poems are funny. I like when poems are happy and giggly and silly. And so I wrote this one after going to Carowinds over the age of 35. So here we go. I want to go to an amusement park that's dangerous. Like, make me sign a series of forms and waivers because I'm entering at my own risk. Hopping on a ride that will most likely result in a slipped disc, give me something dangerous. Just so I can have stories to tell my grandchildren that start like this. Back in my day, bumper cars did 35 miles an hour and ran off diesel fuel. Back in my day, roller coasters were wood-made, coated with lead-based paint and tied together with zip ties. And if you didn't die, then you got a t-shirt that said, I rode the Widowmaker and I survived. Back in my day, there weren't no height requirements. Every man, woman, and child took 2 shots of Epicac, climbed into the Gravitron, while a dude named Randy with 3 fingers on each hand yells out, all right, damn it, hold on. Back in my day, the teacups could easily pull 6 Gs. No food was gluten-free. We ate what we wanted. The haunted house was actually freaking haunted. Our amusement park was in part built on cursed burial grounds. We lost 6 kids in the summer of '89. The customer service was sketchy. Miss Gladys in the ticket booth with a gold tooth kept a loaded handgun in plain sight next to a sign that read, I wish you would. And don't get me started on the petting zoo. You know how we washed our hands when we were through petting a cow, gorilla, rattlesnake, wolverine, or a kangaroo? We didn't, because back in my day, that was amusement. Thank y'all. I appreciate your time. I always love doing that poem because it's just so silly. It just goes anywhere it wants to go, and I love that. So, yes. Hey, Dasan. I was trying to give a very good array of poems, right?
Yes, you did a wonderful job. You did a wonderful job, sir, with your array. So tell me, what moves you to write? What are some of the things that inspires you to put pen to paper? Talk to us.
Man, that's a great question, and often I get that. And the answer's always been the same since I've started and up until like this moment. I think the human condition and the human experience, right? Particularly for me, the Black man experience is always forefront. But I've had the blessed life of being able to travel I won't say travel the world like I'm a full fan. My dad was in the military, so I got to see a lot at a young age, and that really informed me about how big this world is. and how much we all experience some of the same things, just maybe at different times and, different perspectives. But I always look at the human condition and write from that point. I have some very like whimsical, imaginative, like just out of this world kind of poetry, but it doesn't, I feel like for me, it doesn't stick as much as when I talk about seeing someone or trying to write the experience that I know or that I can connect with other people on. So that's what really drives me to write. When I see somebody going through something, or whether it's good or bad, like that thing, that drives me for sure.
So what is a number of experiences? You've been all over, you've had a number, but when you think about some of the like memorable poetry moments, and particularly not with poets, but with audience members and folks who, what are two that come immediately to mind?
Oh wow, it's funny because we're going through this thing with the Latta plantation out here. So I had the opportunity to work at Historic Brattonsville. And that's where, if you've ever heard me do the poem Run, that's where that poem was born. And the first time that I did it, an older generation of white and Black people connected so hard to that poem. And they were like, listen, you took us on a journey, you took us on a trip of things that we forgot about. But it was like they were seeing my young face talk about these old things. And that for me let me know like, hey, what I'm doing is good. What I'm doing is connecting. So that was one of those moments that definitely, that poem just really connects with people. I think another poem that really had the greatest resonance with someone is my poem about my daughter making noise for the first time. It's a very old poem. Like you might remember, but I don't think anybody else does. But I did it at Leaf, and a man came up to me crying about the poem because he had lost his child and was trying to remember her voice. And I did not know what to do with that moment. Like, it's, you want to say sorry for doing the poem. Like, I didn't mean to make you cry, but also thank you for like connecting. So I just hugged him. That's all that I knew that I could do, was hug him to, I guess, make him feel better and so sort of get me out of my awkwardness. So like those two moments, aside from winning nationals, right? That's just, we won a thing. But those moments right there where you really connect to people, when you really have something that was in your heart, in your mind, and you put it down on paper and then fixed it up and then gave it to the world, and the world saw it and was like, yes. Those are those kind of moments where I think a lot of writers really connect. Like, you could tell me I was going to win a Grammy and a Tony and all that tomorrow, but if you were to tell me there's going to be a poem that shifts someone's life, I'll take that all day. I'll take that all day.
Yeah. So that's so powerful. The breast cancer poem, I had a moment with that, and I was so scared because a child came over to speak to me first. And for one, it was an outdoor thing in Raleigh, and I was already worried because a little kid walks over and he's like, "Oh, that you did this poem, it's so great," and I'm like, okay, what's going on here? And then he was like, "My mother wants to talk to you," so I'm like, "All right." And then I look up and they're just over. Then I realize why they sent the kid over. By the time I walk over, it's his father, his mother, and his sister. They're all in tears. And I'm just like,
wow. Yeah.
She was a breast cancer survivor, and the whole family's in tears. We have this big group hug, and I'm just like, oh my, I'm just melting. Like, what? Like a poem. And we talked for like 15 minutes. I'm just like, a poem. I don't know these people from Adam, but it's a poem. Like, the poem created the moment.
Exactly. Do you, flip it on you, do you ever find yourself not wanting to finish a poem because you think it's going somewhere like you're not ready for? Have you ever been like, I can't finish this. This is too much?
Yes, I've had that moment where it's like you can feel everything getting dense. Like you can just feel it, the heaviness. You can just feel it happening,
Right.
and you're just and you're searching because you're like, is it just me? But I feel it. I'm not sure, but I feel like this is different. And I'm like, I really want to escape this poem because I don't know what's happening, but I don't want this feeling anymore. Like,
Exactly.
But yeah, that's definitely happened.
That's dope, man.
All right, I want to see if I can get everybody here. Yes.
Get you tech savvy, Desan. I see you, brother.
Well,
resume. Add that to the resume.
You know, some things after a while. The pandemic taught us how to be a little bit more digitally savvy.
Right.
So I just wanted to have an opportunity for you to meet, everybody, and it's Isabella, Iris, and Lisa, and everyone. This is Blues.
Hey, everybody.
It's so good to meet you.
Nice to meet all of you. You are, if you are learning anything from this guy, then you are learning a mountain of gems and good stuff. So congratulations.
Yes, they're just amazingly talented, and I was happy for us to have this moment. So to everyone watching, thank you for being with us. Has been the Gilbert Chapel Mentor Series Central Region Sessions. Stay tuned. We're gonna do some more things in July with this amazing group of poets and some more special guests. And be on the lookout because you'll be able to, if you go back to both pages, the YouTube page and the Facebook page, you'll be able to find this reading and you can share it with others and tell them to come and watch it and listen to the poems. I'm so grateful for your support, and I hope you have a wonderful evening.